live in a 2-story townhome. It was the middle of July, and it was very hot in Kansas City. I was sleeping on the couch downstairs, as the upstairs is hot in the summer months. I was sleeping, and I remember a low, heavy, dark voice saying I must help Laura, my cousin, understand. I woke up startled by the deepness of the voice. You could even say a little bit scared. My dog, which hardly ever barks, was looking into the kitchen and growling, and then slowly he started to bark. He was watching something, and when I looked in the direction he was looking, of course I couldn't see anything. The light from the outside street lamp was beaming through the window, so it was somewhat light. He started to back away and follow the presence into the den, and then to the wall that was straight across from me. He was watching something, but of course, I still couldn't see anything. But from the way I woke up, in a startled state, I was somewhat scared to move. Like an idiot, I just stayed still and watched my dog follow this presence that only he could sense. He then started to go to the door, located on the wall across from me, and which opens to my garage, growling at the door. He would back up and then move closer, and then he started to smell under the door. Still, I was too afraid to move. I just stayed there and watched. Within 5 to 10 minutes of this, the presence seemed to have left. My dog stopped growling and was going from the kitchen to the wall, into the door again and again, as if to look for something. Finally he gave up and just curled up at my feet, which have not moved an inch this whole time, and fell asleep. Feeling now that the presence had left the room, I went to the door, which led to my garage, and pushed on it to make sure the door was closed. Once again stating what an idiot I am, I did not dare to open the door. However, I didn't really have a choice, because that was when the door cracked open just enough that I could see the face and a body of a bloodied lady in a black robe. It appeared for 40 seconds, and I saw her long enough to make out that she had to be a nun. I just remember her face looking so badly bruised and beaten, as if she was hit with a bat or something damaging enough to give her a black eye. I turned away in fright, then opened the door completely to see that nobody was there anymore. It was like it appeared in a flash of lightning, then was gone. Just to give you some background on my house, the door that goes to my garage does not have a lock in it. Yes, this is dangerous, for if my garage door is open, anybody could just walk in, right into my house. Maybe this nun I saw was really a homeless person. Maybe it was someone who was trying to rob the house, but since they saw me, they fled. Nothing was stolen. Everything was in one piece. Feeling somewhat safe that the presence had left, I joined my dog and soon fell asleep. In the morning I awoke, went upstairs to take a shower, and dressed for work. When I came downstairs, I gathered up all my things and opened the door, which leads to my garage, and stood there in total amazement. My garage door was wide open. I left the door open all night and morning. I truly feel my spirit guide was trying to warn me, and I was too stupid and too afraid to listen to him. As I drove to work, I thanked him for trying to warn me, and I promised to try and listen more carefully next time. The reality sank in that I could have been robbed or beaten. Yes, today I'm buying a chain lock for that door and installing it right away. In hindsight, I wish I would have been more accepting of the events that were happening to me. If this has taught me anything, it's to stop, slow down, and listen to the ones who are trying to help me. As a youngster, I was playing with my toys in the lounge, and suddenly, I had this great feeling of fright around me. So I went running into my mother, who was washing the dishes. She told me not to be frightened, as there was nothing to be frightened of. So she assured me and took me back into the lounge to carry on playing. But as she walked back to carry on washing, she saw a figure standing still in the hallway. It looked as though it appeared to be a monk in a brown habit, with his face covered by his hood. All you could see was his feet, which had sandals on. My mother walked towards it, and it disappeared into my mother's bedroom. But my mother always said how I must have sensed the presence of this ghost. Another time in the same house, it was nighttime, and I couldn't sleep, so I was just looking into space when 3 squares appeared on the wall. I thought that it must have been some kind of light shining in from the window, knowing full well that no light normally shines through, as we had blinds and curtains up at the window. I kept on staring at the squares on the wall. They didn't move or anything, but I felt really frightened like in the other story. I must have fell asleep, thinking about the lights on the wall. In the morning, when I awoke, the first thing I did was get out of my bed and go straight to the wall, hoping in the back of my mind that there wouldn't be any kind of marks on the wall where the square was. But I was wrong. Where the squares were, there were deep-lined marks, like holes that were pressed into the wall around where the shapes were. They looked almost like claw marks and definitely weren't there before. There is no logical explanation for this story, not that I can explain anyway. It was not possible for any light to come through the curtains, and there were no other kind of lights or anything on in the room or in the house. I've tried to come up with some sort of explanation, and I don't have one, and that happened about 23 years ago. I've had some strange and incredible experiences over the years. Just posted one in the last batch. Some of them I haven't sorted out how to share yet, but the following experiences are pretty strange. My roommate and I were living in a Seattle neighborhood called Capitol Hill. Our apartment building, the Ben Lamont, was built in 1910, and my apartment overlooked a little park area with a long retaining wall in the back. One night, I must have fallen into a deep sleep as soon as I went to bed. When I woke up the next day, I immediately told my roommate about a disturbing dream, that a menacing, sinister black figure had climbed out of a hole in the ground, right against the retaining wall. He seemed full of rage and anger, and was coming closer and closer to our window, and meant real harm. It was a very real, fearful thing. After hearing my dream, my roommate said she tried to wake me up soon after I went to sleep, but I was out cold. She said she heard something like a gunshot outside in the park and walked through a darkened apartment to the living room's bay window to see if she could see anything. She said she saw a man who was built like a tank, but fitting the physical description of the man in my room to a T. He appeared to be staring up at her. For whatever reason, I don't understand why she did this, considering she thought she heard a gunshot, but she shined a flashlight on him. When she did, she could no longer see him. Although she saw everything else, the trees, the ground, bushes, everything where she was standing was illuminated, but he had vanished. When she covered the light, there he was again. I guess she did this a few times until he really vanished. Very, very strange. Another time I was staying in an artist's loft in San Francisco that was in a really creepy area on Market Street and 6th. I was in bed, just starting to get the semi-lucid feeling, when I woke with a frightened gasp. The only way to describe it is a flash vision. I thought for sure my throat had been slashed with a deep, long knife from left to right, and all this blood was pouring. I remember sitting up gasping, knowing it was fatal. Then on the news the next day, chills went up my spine when the anchor person said that someone's throat had been slashed at a hotel on 6th Street, right around the corner from where I was staying. Somehow, I must have picked up on the victim's fear, anxiety, and shock. Not really a ghost story, but still weird. Another time, a friend and I had an interconnecting dream. I dreamt one part, and she dreamt the other. They matched perfectly, and since we both dreamt this right before we were waking up, we assumed we had these dreams at the same time. I think I was about 7 when I first started seeing things in my house and around my neighborhood. The first time I saw something was when my sister and I were sharing a room. I knew that I always felt something in the room, but I never saw anything, so I really paid no mind. Then one day, while I was sitting in my room, I looked up and saw an image by my door. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know that I was scared. Over the next couple of days, I would hear things in my room, like people walking, the doorknob would jiggle, and things would just tip over. When I talked to my mom about these things, she told me not to be scared of them, just tell them to go away. The next night, I was sitting on my bed, and I heard somebody walking around. I did what my mom told me, and told it to go away. It didn't work. The sound became closer, and an image began to appear. At first I was kind of scared, but when I saw what the image was, I wasn't so scared anymore. It was a little girl, about 5 years old, who was lost. She was just staring at me for a while, and then she just sat down on the bed next to me. She was sitting next to me for about 2 minutes, and then she was just gone. For a few years, I wouldn't see anything, just hear things. When my older sister moved out, my sister and I finally had our own rooms. I stayed in her original room, and my sister moved to my other sister's old room. For a couple of months, things were cool, and then my sister woke up in the middle of the night and asked if she could sleep with me. The next morning, when I asked her why she slept with me, she told me it was because she was hearing people talking from the closet. Me and her had to switch rooms because she wouldn't sleep in her room. The first night, nothing happened, but the second night was completely different. I was hearing whispering and footsteps. At first, I thought I was scaring myself, but when I heard someone ask why my sister and I switched rooms, I knew I wasn't imagining it. At first, everyone thought I was making it up, but when I told my grandma about it, she looked at me as if she were surprised. She told me that I wasn't the only one in the family to be able to hear and see things. It was something that actually ran in my family. After that, things started happening more. People would talk to me. I would feel them touch my arm, face, or even feet when I was sleeping. And sometimes, I could feel someone sitting at the end of my bed. I think when I really got scared was when I decided to sleep with my light on so nothing would bother me. But when someone said turn the light off, that was it. I ran to my mom's room and fell asleep on the edge of her bed. That was the last time anything happened to me for about a year. I thought it was just something I went through, but when I turned 14, it got bad. Not only was I seeing things at home, but I was seeing them outside occasionally. I learned not to say anything. because when I would, people would just laugh at me. My family and I became aware of a particular area of a supposed haunting in the Jamestown, North Carolina area. We were intrigued by the article and wanted to investigate, even though we are people of faith. The article, which made us aware of the haunting, was in a local magazine and caught my two sons' attention after my wife read the article in a restaurant. The article described the following. In the 1920s, there was an accident in Jamestown near a certain bridge underpass involving two high school students returning from the local prom. From time to time, locals have reported driving by the area where the accident occurred and spotting a young woman dressed nicely standing by the roadside, needing a lift. The stories tell of a young woman named Linda entering the car and describing where she needed to be dropped. Upon nearing the destination, she vanishes. Of course, my wife and I are skeptical, to say the least, so, unaware of any peril, or should I say for a lack of knowledge or fear, we thought we would investigate with our two young sons, of 5 and 8 years. We arrived at the location, which is off the main road into the woods, about 100 yards. There is an old stone-blocked railroad underpass, located next to the now regularly used underpass. Both of the underpasses have been covered with graffiti in tribute to the stories of Lydia. The old underpass, however, has been overgrown with ivy and weeds and is relatively secluded to say the least. Nevertheless, we were determined to investigate despite the spooky nature of the claims. As we entered the underpass, the air became distinctly colder, which we all noticed. We all felt frightened and left after only a few moments. We got in our car and drove home. We thought nothing of the event until that evening. Strange things began to occur at about 2 a.m. Of all things, an old woody doll with a pull string began to speak in a toy box and would not stop. The electric van door opened and closed several times without any provocation. My boys thought someone was in their room. We thought we were frightened from our prior experiences and let our logical minds control. The house still seemed strange to me, and I had difficulty sleeping, even though my male ego would not let me admit my fear. Time went by, and although the supposed haunting events were less traumatic, they nevertheless continued for about a month. It came time for the van to have a regular tune-up, and we took it to the dealership. When my wife returned with the van, the trouble ceased. I don't know what we experienced exactly over that period in 2001, but it seemed real. My wife and I still question the validity of our haunting, but our youngest son still maintains that Megan, as he refers to her, often talked to him and was very nice. Anyway, it's a nice little story we often tell family members who don't think we're lost on cozy evenings. Hope you will enjoy. I used to work at this daycare center that only stayed in business for 2 years. The building that we worked in had many owners and many businesses, but never stayed in business for longer than 2 years. Usually, bankruptcy would follow. Anyway, I had worked there for about a year and had always been scared of the back of the building. There was a long dark corridor that always gave me the chills, and I always felt like I was being watched. I had the early morning shift, so I had to be there at 6:30 and get ready for the kids to arrive. One morning, I had an infant who was only 4 months old and was asleep at the time of the incident. We were in our room, and I was writing out papers for the rest of the day when I saw a toy out of the corner of my eye being thrown across the room. I didn't think anything of it and played it off as my imagination until a week later when another coworker told me what happened to her. She was in the sleep room changing a child's diaper when she looked right and saw a little girl standing there staring at her. She looked back at the child she was changing and back, and the little girl had vanished. There were no children besides the one she was changing in the room with her. It freaked her out, and when she told me, it freaked me out, because then I realized that the toy that I saw thrown across the room wasn't my imagination. Neither one of us had another experience, but those two were enough for us. Hey Phantoms, and welcome to another edition of Phantom of Darkness's Ghost Stories. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you give it a big fat thumbs up for February, and why not tell me in the comments section below which story you love the most. For me, I would say I pretty much loved all the stories because they all seem pretty awesome to me, which is surprising because I always have a favorite of every story that I read. But for this video, I don't think I have a favorite. But guys, let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are. Just to say hi, keep my company, or keep me company, I guess. I'll just leave that in there. I don't want to edit that out. It just means I'm genuine and I make mistakes just like every other human being on the face of the earth. But seriously, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And I guess I'll end this now. So give it a thumbs up, a like, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Love ya.